America,
so there you go, President
Uganda,
Trump.
you can go Somalia, whatever you want.
There is the message.
Yeah.
This brother is saying the world is a global village.
Yeah.
So human beings should live anywhere in the world.
You can stay
Anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Europeans live in Africa,
Yeah.
in South Africa, in Kenya, in Laikipia, in Kajiado.
Yeah.
Our brothers and sisters also live in Texas or Minnesota.
Yeah.
So let them be, man.
Yeah.
You guys were also immigrants.
Just chill.
Chill out, Trump, man.
Yeah.
Wagwan maze. Shukran. A lot of stuff going on in America, man.
So nikakaa tena ikifika kitu kama saa 9 hivi tena simu ikaingia, nikaona simu inaingia, tena ni jina ya Mkenya, nikasema wa mwingine.
How brothers and sisters are turning on each other. Donald Trump policies driving a wedge right in between Kenyans and Africans who are out there in the US. Come right back with reactions. Share your sincere thoughts, man. And especially Kenyans who are living out there. The snitching may be a bit too much. It is early morning in Nairobi. Kenyan Americans are snitching on Kenyans. Africans snitching on Africans. For what? $750 US. $750 US. So, according to these brothers and sisters, their fellow countrymen and women can be sold for a mere $750. Is it right that they're doing this? Is it right? And for these guys who are stuck in the US, for whatever reason, obviously papers expired, should they continue living in the US without papers, working under the radar, working under difficult conditions, because they honestly cannot get any decent jobs, dodging the authorities, and essentially living a life of servitude? Donald Trump's policies have kicked in big time, and they're facing the wrath of that. Is it time for them to come back to Nairobi? This is Nairobi, man, early morning in Nairobi. Or should they carry on with their life in America? That is the question that we're asking today. That is the issue that we need to confront today, man. So welcome to Nairobi. And if you're a Kenyan American, you're still stuck out there, and Donald Trump is saying, come on back home. Listen, man, let's board that flight, man. Come back home. This is home. You're always welcome here. So Donald Trump may kick you out, but this is home. Early morning in Nairobi. So enjoy the view. Let's take a dive. So they'll be speaking in Swahili. I'll do the translation for you. I hope we can make sense out of this.
So nilisikia kwa episode.
So I heard from this brother's episode talk about a Kenyan snitching on another Kenyan.
Hard.
But I didn't take it too hard because I didn't think a Kenyan would really tell on the other.
But wacha niwaambieni.
But let me shock you. So yesterday, I was working at the office, receiving calls.
So
then there was a number of calls that came through, 2 calls. And those 2 calls stood out. One came through around 10 a.m. Another one in the late afternoon, around 3 o'clock. Both cases, it was Kenyans who were calling. And I could tell because from those calls, the register would always show the full name. So you would know the name of the caller in advance, even before they tell you. So I see the name and it looks, man, this is a local name. It's a Kenyan name. And then he says he wants to report somebody who's working in the US without papers. So I took all the information. Who is it? He gives me all the details. And all the details point to a Kenyan. And I ask myself, why would another Kenyan snitch on another Kenyan like this? So I just told him, we'll follow up. And I dropped it there. Moment later in the afternoon, another call comes through. It's another Kenyan again. Snitching again.
yenye ameoa Muamerika juu ya makaratasi tu.
So it's a Kenyan who's telling the story of another lady
Huyu alikuwa demu wake.
who apparently is married to an American in a sham marriage. And in my head, alarm bells just went ringing. This is probably somebody who's a jilted love, who's trying to sell out a fellow Kenyan. So this was obviously an ex-girlfriend he's telling on. So I've got to tell you, Kenyans, man, we came here on a mission. We are all visitors here. Even if you've got citizenship, you've got residency, whatever kind of status you have, we are all visitors here. So don't do what you're doing to your neighbor, to your friend, man, because you might think you are revenging for whatever reason, you know, going for the money for whatever reason, but you don't know how much his being in America is impacting life back at home. You have no idea. So you could just be destroying somebody else's future way back at home. Let's explore this Donald Trump immigration mayhem as you see it, okay? My own take always has been that it appears there is a particular elite of America, those who are right at the center of decisions, of running the world, so to speak, because the American hegemon would love to retain its power position in the world. And if you look at what Donald Trump is doing today, he's setting about alienating the US from the rest of the world. That is what is going on. For a vast majority of Americans, at least from how we see it from our side, and correct me if I'm wrong, man, we may not have all the information, we may not have the entire perspective. You guys are on the ground, but at least we can say something based on what we watch in the news. I don't live in America. And Donald Trump arrived on that political scene as an underdog, at least in the first term. He looked very much out of place. He didn't look like he was at home with the rest of the presidents of the world. And he was ridiculed.
Donald Trump.
The press party, the roasting party, where President Barack Obama took a swipe at Donald Trump. Well, for good reason. Donald Trump has always held that President Obama is Kenyan, should never have become president of the US. Never mind that from your own laws there in the US, if you are born in the US, you automatically become American. So that's how President Obama ended up becoming president. Much as he's got roots right here in Kenya, because he's a first generation Obama in the US. That said, the man who was always speaking loud that President Barack Obama should return home, President Donald Trump. President Donald Trump himself is the son of an immigrant. So honestly, if Donald Trump is loading up Africans, illegal immigrants, gangbangers as you call it, sending them back off to Venezuela, to Asia, to the Arab world, and certainly to Africa, then Donald Trump must be reminded that he himself is a son of an immigrant. His late grandfather only arrived there in the late 1890s. So the brother, at any rate, President Trump is either second or third generation Trump. A man whose own grandfather's house can still be identified in Germany, Karlsruhe, Germany. The information is out there if you care to look. But the psyche in the American public, the understanding, perhaps by a white America, and not all European Americans, by the way, but a certain select few of white America, tend to be of the feeling that they are entitled to America. Some of them arrived in the States way after slavery, but they seem to have more rights in comparison to black populations that arrived in America either before them or after them. You got foundational black Americans. A vast majority certainly lay a greater claim to America than the general white population of America. But there's always the assumption that if you are of European descent, you are a lot more American than the blacks who are out there in the States. Those are realities. So that even when certain blacks talk about they don't belong to Africa, they have never been, so they have no reason to return or to miss anything about a place where they have never really been and have no recollection of. Granted that that may be the case, we have no way of proving. But one thing that is for sure, you will always be treated different in that land that eventually became your home. You will always be treated different. But do you have a right? You absolutely have a right. You do. Because you have built the damn America, man. You have built White House. Your folks have built Capitol Hill. So you have a right to that place, man. You do. You know? Thank you. You do have a right to that place. All right? So we can't take that away from you. But I'm also a strong believer, at least on this channel, that you also have a right to Africa because you can take advantage of that dual heritage. And the reason I say that is this, that if ever we are to have a conversation about reparations, then that conversation must acknowledge that Africa played a part in sending away the brothers and sisters to the Western capitals where they were enslaved. The West certainly benefited off of the blood and sweat of our brothers and sisters who are out there. For that reason that Africa played a part, Africa owes you something. And this is not to say that we're just pandering to you guys because you are now American. It is simply a fact of life that a vast majority of you came from the continent of Africa. This continent, man, this place, you all came from here. You know, one way or the other. Even if it was an immigration thing that happened way, way back. The days of the kingdom of Musa in West Africa. When there were voyages to the US, way, way before even Christopher Columbus arrived in the US. The man who claims to have found America. So we have been around, man. We have been around. We've traveled. You hear about the Moors who went and conquered Europe, Spain to be specific, back in the day. Brought civilization to that place. But that has always been discounted by a narrative to suggest that Africa and Africans have never really been at the forefront of any form of civilization anywhere in the world. Simply because somebody came along and enslaved other brothers and sisters out there. Somebody came along and colonized the continent of Africa. You know, these fellows just sat about at a table and chopped up Africa as if they are at some butchery. And when you speak about this, I'm sorry, man. There's some white folk out there who think that speaking about this is hating on Europeans. It is not hating on Europeans. It is acknowledging history. What it did to other people, man. The subjugation, the pain, the torture. And it is a stain on humanity. So we must speak about it from the highest rooftop, that the world may never forget that those of my kind went through such a difficult time. That is a fact of life. And so you would hope that we move on as humanity, because the call, speaking about these things, is to acknowledge that we are humans, to be humane in the way we treat each other. There'll always be a challenge, there'll always be racism, but to what degree is it part of a system that even in this day and age continues to ensure that the Western world belongs to a select few? A lot of European countries still have monarchies, and the history of these monarchies were bloody. What they did to their own civilian populations, it was bloody. You know about the French Revolution and why it happened. Because these guys basically were living a life of opulence against the common man who essentially worked the farms and supported them, helped them build and maintain those empires. The same antics that went on all the way to Africa and the colony of America that now President Donald Trump heads. So back to the very topic. Africans snitching. A vast majority of Africans in the US are obviously there for economic reasons, fact of life. Is it illegal to want to seek something better for yourself? To explore the world? No, it's not illegal. Come to Africa. There is still a great element of colonization in many African countries. But over and above that, you have a lot of European expats traveling to Africa, getting plum jobs, getting good packs, setting up NGOs. You come to a place like Kenya, for example, the startups in tech, they show up and they front Kenyans, young Kenyans. You see them at the forefront. But these guys, when they're right at the back, running the shots, getting the funding. You even have organizations that deal with issues of environment. One of the biggest things that has happened in the country for the longest time is the exploitation of the whole carbon credit system. The solar industry, largely pioneered by Europeans coming from the West, because they discovered something there early enough. And isn't that how the world works? You know? So they would say that if you guys are sleeping on it, somebody better check it up. So they did. You may not hold it against them, but at least we can speak about it openly and candidly. That's what's going on, man. That's what's going on. So look around Nairobi. There's a lot of movement. People are starting off to work, you know. A bit of slow traffic here because we just passed the main highway that takes you into town. That main highway that we passed takes you from the airport all the way to the city center. And they've got an expressway there that you can normally use. So if you travel to Africa, to Nairobi to be specific, and you're leaving the airport, please remember, tell the taxi guy, or whoever it is that is picking you, please, let's use the expressway. It's quicker. You pay a little dollars, and you're good to go. So Nairobians, the snitching. I think African countries, Africans in America or any European capital, man, I think we sympathize with what you guys are going through. And I had a cousin who, I must say, happily, that I learned he's self-deported before the ICE team could catch up with him. Because you are stuck in the West, your papers have expired, you have to dodge throughout, get a measly wage because you will be exploited by employers since you have no number that identifies you as being legitimately in the country. And so you'll go through a life of servitude. Is it worth it? I don't think it's worth it. Obviously, for a lot of people, there's the feeling that the shame that they're coming back home with nothing in their hand. And so you come back crestfallen. But I can tell you for sure, like even for this relative of mine, I'm happy and I'm looking forward to just hanging out with him because it's been such a long time. And you play the life where even on social media, you are nowhere to be seen. The American dream for a lot of these folks, man, is dead. Died long time ago. And on average, the life out there is a rat race because you are thrown into a system where you constantly have to work day and night, perhaps sleeping only 4 hours, doing up to 3 jobs to just put bread on the table, not live a fulfilling life. Is that something that is really of value to anyone? Is it? It's getting a little warm in Nairobi now. It was cold in the morning. Actually, it was drizzling when I walked out the door. And when I mean cold, I'm talking about 18 degrees. Yes, anything below 20 for us is cold. Because listen, man, we live in the tropics. And the tropics has its magic, man. It's always warm much of the time. When it rains, it soon shines. So that is the magic of Africa. Perhaps it makes Africans a little more complacent because the extreme situations in the West are not the kind of things that, it's not the kind of weather that you can take any chances, really. It will be chaotic for you, drastic for you. I remember one time traveling to the UK, many, many years back. And there was a couple, you know. There was an old British couple that were found dead at home. Then it was discovered that the gas company had actually cut off supply to their house because they had a pending bill. That is how harsh the West can be. Systems work very well, but should you fall off that system, even a wee bit, then you become a victim. That couple rested. It was winter. And I remember it was announced at the time that that was one of the coldest winters in London. It had never even snowed, and I witnessed snow there for the first time. So that was tragic. And that is the reality that you face in the West. You go through this meal, this race, that you never really have any meaningful growth. Those who have been lucky have made it big, invested back home in Africa. Those are the lucky ones. And there's this Kenyan brother who speaks a lot of sense on his channel, and especially on Facebook. That's where I came across him. Always urging and advising Kenyans specifically, but obviously it is something that can be consumed by African populations, immigrants who are going to the West, on just how to behave when you get there. And one of his greatest concerns is how you can easily, again, become a victim of the same system that works very well. The voice of a woman in the Western culture is loud, man. It's loud. And the authorities oftentimes will respond and be quick to side with the sisters out there. They could be black, African, they could even be European. And there's a Kenyan who got on the wrong side of the law because he was working, and for some reason, his arm accidentally he just tapped on a woman. And she got so hysterical, they ended up suing this brother. He was only new in the US. He lost his green card status. He was thrown in jail. He had a record because somebody lied to him that he should take a plea. Somebody lied to him. Whew, that's crazy. That he should take a plea. So he was struggling with that. I'm not even sure the case is over because this was something like a month ago. So he must still be going through that process. The African brother who's leaving the continent, a vast majority of the time is coming from a culture that is patriarchy oriented. Matriarchy in African countries is very limited. In certain communities, yes. But it's very limited. I don't know what the percentage is, but I could put it to something as 10%. In the Western capitals, I think the idea is that they push for equality, equity among the gender. But anything that borders on violation, African brother who is out there, man, you better watch it, because you are going to be in big trouble. And the system in the West will always side with their citizen and not you. So you may soon find yourself in jail or thrown out of the country, like ICE is doing now. So you can imagine that anybody who's got a certain record on him, who has any violations, are very likely high up in the target. I saw the list for those who are getting deported. And you got your Africans there, you got your brothers and sisters there, you know. You got South Americans, you've got Asians, you've got the Arabs, all kind of people. So Trump is serious about this. Is it helping America's case in the world? Obviously, immigration is one of the things that is rubbing many countries the wrong way. And there are so many people who are getting caught up in the system wrongfully. And even the Trump administration has apologized about that. You've got President Donald Trump slapping tariffs on many other countries. Is that really working for America? I doubt it. And I think the long-term effects will come much later. You know? Yeah. Will come much later. Sakaja, please come and collect your trash. Look at it. So, we are crossing to the City Stadium in Nairobi's Eastlands. Right next to the City Stadium is Kaloleni. If you see The buildings on that horizon over there, that's Kaloleni for you. Or Ololo. Nairobians, Kenyans who are out there, you'll remember that. So essentially this is the rail line, and a lot of these old buildings here were built way back the colonial time, so you can imagine. And Africans lived here, those who were rail workers along the line. So you've got Kaloleni, you've got Makongeni, which is right ahead, all staff quarters for the rail workers. So that is just to give you a glimpse of life in Nairobi's Eastlands. Not the typical upmarket areas of Nairobi that you know, but the working class. Most of them come from Nairobi's Eastlands area. And so you see them trooping to work. So you'll walk 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours. To get yourself to your work location. And I enjoy these morning walks, especially when this weather looks like this, man. The best time to exercise. Easily, you can do 4 or 5 miles. Easily. So Kenyans are trooping to work. This is a matatu. They are boarding a matatu, which is essentially public transport on Kenyan roads. These are 14-seater matatus. You know? And Kenyans are hard at work. Look at that, that's chapati. So this is a typical thing that you see in many places along the streets. These are the sort of food centers you see. Look at this gentleman who's got his eggs, his boiled eggs. We call it mayai boil. Mayai is Swahili for egg. A delicacy with a lot of Kenyans. So this is the raw. And right there, you got the city stadium now. So what does the Trump presidency mean for Africa? The other day, President Trump, during an interview, spoke about the country, Kenya. And I must say in very glowing terms. You know? In very glowing terms. The Kenyans are hard workers. Matter of fact, he's employed some in his many companies. And he's looking forward to coming to Kenya. Did you hear that? Donald Trump actually said that Kenya most likely would be the first country that he would visit in Africa. And I think for good reason. Remember the whole Barack Obama tussle. He's still on that. And it does make a point that the man who thought he could never become president, who also has a right to his Kenyan citizenship, by the way, which I think Kenya has failed to exploit. President Obama by now should have his Kenyan passport. The fact that he can actually travel to President Obama's home country. He always insisted that Barack Obama was never born in the US and should return back home to Kenya. That is consistent with Donald Trump. And of course, he was laughed off by a lot many. He was teased during one of those famous press meetings, press club toast with President Barack Obama. which made a lot of ridicule of President Donald Trump. So obviously he would want to stick it back to President Obama by visiting the country, you know, by visiting Kenya as his first African country to visit. So I absolutely understand it. So let them carry on, man. And hopefully one day even President Barack Obama can claim his own heritage, because he does belong here and he can get his dual citizenship sorted. But, you know, he's property of the American state. As a former head of state, he's a man of interest, so that may not happen. And here we are in Kaloleni, Nairobi. Welcome to Ololo. This is City Market, City Stadium Market, where Kenyans are hard at work. You can see it's early morning, but everybody has put out their wares. This staff never sleeps here, by the way. So if you look at the bags here, they bring them out every morning, and in the evening, they take them back with them. Because there isn't any storage here. These are just shacks, if you can look. They're just shacks, paper shacks, but they work for earning an honest income. A vast majority of Kenyans really hard working. Donald Trump just said in that interview that Kenyans are hard working. We don't need his validation, but he said it. And the average African who goes out there, by the way, oftentimes is on a mission to better their life, to better their condition. That is always the mission. So the average African that you will find out there will be working very hard, just like my sister here, who's doing her stuff. You know, Kenyans are having breakfast in the morning. That is a typical thing, because people are out to get something for themselves. They are not interested in crime. And because of the persecution and the political mess and economic messes that you find in many African countries, a lot of young men are pushed to travel to the West because of that. They go through Libya, they go through Libya, a very difficult territory, Northern Africa, trying to cross over to Spain, and it's always a pain. Look at the Sahel region. So the young men who go through the Sahel region, the young men who go through the Sahel region face a lot of challenge. So this is Nairobi, early morning, man. Early morning, that's early morning traffic. This is Jogo Road, takes you all the way to the city center through that. But back to the main point. They go through a lot of strife because of the failed economic and political systems in Africa. That is what happens. So when you see that young men and women are hard at work, then you see the challenge. Look at the brothers here. People are trying to find an income, something to earn. You know? Niaje? Mkwaje? Shughuli kwaje?
Shughuli iko ndogo. Kuliko chini jamaa sasa. Hakuna shughuli.
Hakuna shughuli?
Hakuna job.
So I've met young brothers here who are saying there isn't much to do for them. So maybe I just want to have a quick word with them. Nani anaweza ongea Kingoso hapa kidogo? Basi nitranslate.
Yeah, labda Kiswahili.
In sawa.
Yeah, niongee kuhusu nini ama topic?
Umesema janta hakuna, niambie.
Yeah, kazi hakuna. Hata mkiona mayuti hapa tunasumbua kidogo. Ni kazi hatuna bana. Tuko ma idlers, tuko wengi sana. So, jaribu hapo bana tupate job at least. Tusikae idle vile. Yeah.
Si huyu president unamwambia nini bana? President Ruto.
Angalia vijana hatuna kazi. Ameenda juu akaenda juu kabisa. Ametusahau. Naona. So tunakaa tu tumesauliwa vijana, unaona? So wajaribu kutuangalia.
Umesikia Trump anafukuza watu kutoka states?
Yeah, nimesikia hiyo story.
Nyinyi mnaongeaje hiyo story?
Hajafanya poa.
Kwa nini?
Hajafanya poa.
Si nchi ni yao.
Nchi ni yao, lakini
pia hata kama ni yao bado. Sasa hata check hata bado ukiangalia, bado tunacheka hata bado ukiangalia, tuna maforo na huko ndani, lakini tunasema check hata bado hatuzo fukuza. Sasa sababu kuna maforo wa Burundi wamejaa huko ndani bado zakaa.
So this brother is saying that foreigners exist everywhere else in the world, that even in Kenya itself, We've got brothers and sisters from the East African region, and they live and work here, and they're never chased away. So why should President Donald Trump kick guys out of the US? Big question for you, President Donald Trump. Imfikie. I hope you got the message, man.
Yeah.
Imfikie.
Wewe ungejafanya majenzi wa Kenya poa, ungejafanya majenzi poa. Sasa wewe mwambie tu tumaudika na ile kitu imefanya. Hatujafurahia.
Mimi kuna kazini yangu baadhi
alikazi bado sawa. Na unaelewa bado shitaji tuko nayo. Na bado kingalao ameenda kutafuta.
Ameenda kutafuta exactly.
Sasa unamfukuza naye ameenda kutafuta. Hajafanya kitu mbaya bado. Kama tu kutafuta riziki yake.
Baadhi mnajua Trump alitoka country gani? Trump grandfather yake alitoka Germany. Grandfather yake.
Yeah.
Which means it's just the other day around 1890. Maslaves wengi wale waliendanga states way before hata grandfather Trump aende states. Lakini buda anataka kufukuza watu.
Lakini hajafanya kwa mimi nimeona kila juu kama Kenya tumepea, Burundi wamejaa, Uganda wamejaa, Rwanda wamejaa, imagine. Lakini mbona tumewapokea? Si wanafanya biashara hapa Kenya. Tumewaruhusu kwa sababu mimi naona mwanadamu, mtu yetu anaitwa mwanadamu. Ako na maisha mahali popote. Mwanadamu yeyote ako na ruhusa ya kuishi mahali popote. Unaenda America uishi.
There you go, President Trump.
You can go Somalia, whatever you want.
There is the message.
Yeah.
This brother is saying the world is a global village.
Yeah.
So human beings should live anywhere in the world.
You can stay
anywhere in the world.
Way, yeah.
Europeans live in Africa.
Yeah.
In South Africa, in Kenya, in Laikipia, in Kajiado.
Yeah.
Our brothers and sisters also live in Texas or Minnesota.
Yeah.
So let them be, man.
Yeah.
You guys were also
Trump,
immigrants.
Just to chill.
Chill out, Trump, man.
Yeah.
Wagwan maze. Shukran, Joe. Pamoja. All right, man. Yeah. So the message there is, President Trump, that come on, man. It's a global village. Let humans enjoy where they can stay. Let them be. No more words, man, from young Kenyans in the streets who are out hustling. It's early morning. They barely have anything to do. So it is our business, of course, to fix our problems, truth be told. So home for us is home, man. Home for us is home. We believe in Africa. Africa is home, and we make no apologies about it. Kenyans are hardworking everywhere, man. So just come to Nairobi even now. This is evening traffic. People are out selling. Your traffic jam there. But Kenyans are out trying to make a living, an honest living, along the streets of Nairobi. You know? So this is the simplicity of life in Africa, man. If you haven't been, you got your food, your fruits on the side of the road. You got your shoes. You know, you got your shops, fast food, you name it, you get it. Look at that. That's mshikaki. Nyama in the evening. It's good bites to take home. Something to snack on as you go. So that's Nairobi for you. And clearly, the immigration policy is going to break a lot of families, black, African immigrant families in America. So those who do not have paperwork either have self-deported or they have been kicked out. I would imagine that others still in denial would be playing hide and seek with the ICE authorities. But for how long? I spoke to some Kenyans that I bumped into earlier, and I believe you just watched that bit. And their message, a single message to President Donald Trump is, it is a global village. Humans should live wherever they can, anywhere in the world, and certainly even on the continent of Africa. You will find European settlers from back in the day, or you will find Europeans who've been naturalized, who now live in Africa, who call Kenya home, who call South Africa home, East Africa home, all over the place. It is the same token that should be extended to brothers and sisters who are out there, you know? Because if you guys think or find Africa to be home, why wouldn't African immigrants also consider the Western capitals home? That is a reality. So fellows, share your thoughts in the comments, man. Is Trump right? Should America kick guys out? Should Africans extend the same token and kick out Europeans who are on the continent of Africa? That has got to be the relationship there, man. Those are the realities that you have to think about. You cannot run away from it. You cannot run away from it. So, entirely, the message also has to be for African leadership that get your act together, man. Get your act together so that our brothers and sisters are not having to escape motherland to try and find the American dream. We can find the African dream on the continent. We can build the African dream on the continent. You know, so crossing is mayhem.